welcome to People Are Everything, the show where I ask my guests, who are the 5 people that have shaped the person you are today? And today we have Jed Hallam. Jed was introduced to me by Jess Gregson. If you remember back in, I think it was series 2, we had Jess and she was awesome. You know, we talked about clubbing, we talked about music. We had a lot of references that were the same. And it's exactly the same here with Jed. He's a fascinating guy. He's steeped in culture, in music, in history. He's just one of those Renaissance portfolio types of guys and endlessly fascinating. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Jed Hallam. Hey Jed, welcome to People Are Everything. How are you today?
I am very good, thank you. It is Baltic outside, but I am on about 6 different layers of clothing, so I think I'm all right.
It is, I reckon it's the coldest day of the year. And actually, it's easy to say, isn't it, because it's the first week of January. So it is definitely the coldest week of the year.
It's a safe bet. I think you're all right.
Well, listen, it's good to have you. You are my first recording of the new year, so Happy New Year to you, first of all.
Happy New Year to you. I think Larry David would say that we couldn't say it, but I think we're all good.
What's the rules then? Because I never know either.
I mean, Larry David is obviously a famously grumpy man and says it's 4 days, but 4 days feels a bit tight.
It does feel a bit tight. I reckon the whole of January.
Yeah. I think that's all right.
Why not? Why not be, convivial for as long as we can?
Yes.
But listen, I need to admire your mighty vinyl collection behind you there. I used to get, quite often on this podcast, I get quite intimidated by people with lots of books. But I think I'm even more intimidated by your vinyl collection. That, to me, that seems like a lifetime collection. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, I had some friends over just before Christmas, and someone that had not been over before. So I'm in the garden. I'm at the bottom of the garden. We moved house about 4 or 5 years ago, and my wife said at the time, those things have to go outside. They can't be in the house anymore. Mainly because where we were living before, we were in a sort of townhouse thing, and the floor had started to bow because they were on the first floor, which is the point at which it should have been clocked as a problem. But yeah, these friends came over and one had not been over before, and she said, "Oh, you must have been collecting for years." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's about 15, like since I was about 12, 13 years old, so it's about 10, 15." And then I was like, "No, it's not. That's 25 years." So that was a terrifying reminder of my own mortality. But yeah, it is 25 years. My dad's, in fact, one of the sort of honourable mentions, I suppose, for the people that I wanted to talk about today that didn't make it into the list. One of them is my dad, because from the age of being about 5 or 6, he just force-fed me music. And I just refused almost all of it for so long, because it would be things like Charles Mingus or Sun Ra, or like some sort of weird psych folk band from the late 60s. And then I would have been about 11 or 12, and he sat me down and played me the Chemical Brothers record, Exit Planet Dust, from start to finish. And I was just like enthralled, and that was it. That was the start then. I would, save whatever money I could get hold of through paper rounds and odd jobs and stuff like that, and go record shopping, and just disappeared into, a world of like Detroit techno and house music. And then it went into, then it went to jazz and disco and soul and footwork, jungle, just everything really.
Well, I know we're going to cover lots of ground today, Jed, but let's start with the music anyway, because you are what do they call it now? Renaissance man, portfolio career man, just a man with many talents. I don't know, but you have lots about you. So one of those things is that you're a DJ on a radio station. Do they call it that anymore? Host, something like that, isn't it? What do you say? Well, how do you introduce yourself at parties?
Yeah, I'm always reticent to say. I think the Renaissance man is great. I think it's definitely a man with a short attention span and too much energy is probably a better way of describing it. But I don't think I'd ever describe myself as a DJ. I just really like sharing music with people, and like radio show host also feels kind of weird. Just because it feels a bit. I mean, God bless him, it feels a bit Terry Wogan. I'd quite like to be a Terry Wogan character. But I'm not sure I've got that. And then the other one I always think of as well is Tony Blackburn. And I used to work with Tony Blackburn's son, and he told me the best story. I'm so off topic already.
That's fine. Keep going.
It's probably going to happen a lot. So I used to work with this guy called Simon Blackburn, and everybody used to say that his dad was Tony, and because he was a very, very short man. I just thought people were like poking a bit of fun at him. And we worked really closely on a couple of different accounts because I'm working at that point I was working in an advertising agency. And he was a bit older than me, about 15 years older than me. I eventually like plucked up the courage on the way back from a client meeting to say, is your dad actually, because I thought, because people were taking the mickey, so I thought, there's no way I can say this. And he was like, much more senior. Anyway, I plucked up the courage and said, is your dad actually Tony Blackburn? And he said, yeah. He said, I'm always up for talking about it. Like he's a hero of mine as much as he is my dad as well. I thought it was really sweet. Anyway, I told him what I'd started doing with Love Will Save the Day, and told him about my Stevie Wonder obsession. And he said, oh, I've got a great story for you. Oh God, I can feel myself starting to cry already. We've been on the call about 5 minutes, haven't we?
Yeah. Get the tissues out.
Anyway, so I'm sat talking to Simon. It's on a train journey back from the glamorous world of Milton Keynes, and he said, "Oh yeah, I used to when my dad did Top of the Pops, I used to go with him like a couple of times a year. I'd go along with him whenever like school allowed for it, and there wasn't other things on." And he said, one day, his dad was doing Top of the Pops, and he's in the green room, and Simon's like, I think he said he was about 10 at the time. So like, I mean, not much taller than he would have been then. But like this sort of like cute little boy sat in the green room, and his dad walks in. I says, oh, would you like to meet a pop star? And he's like, yeah. Like, yeah, of course. So he says, I'm going to introduce you to a good friend, Stevie. And it's Stevie Wonder. So Stevie Wonder walks in and is chatting to Tony. Tony introduces him to Simon. And then Tony gets distracted and someone's like stolen his sort of attention and is asking him something, like one of the production crew. And Stevie Wonder leans in to Simon Blackburn and says, your dad is a very, very special man because he played me in the UK before anybody else did and has always supported me. And you must always remember that your dad is an incredibly special man.
Wow.
And it just absolutely floored me. And I think about it on such a regular basis. Imagine being told by Stevie Wonder
that your dad
is his hero. Yeah, got it. Wild.
That is wild. That's a great story. Well, I know music's at the heart of who you are. I know that's how there's this kind of like link between you and Jess Gregson, which is why we're here in the first place, because I met Jess. And oh, by the way, this is my favorite part of the whole podcast, is because I meet all these amazing people who I'd never normally meet. So I met Jess because I met Jindy, and the story goes, and now I'm meeting you. And the interconnectedness of everybody kind of just always astonishes me. But I know that you share with Jess a love of music, first of all. But also you're connected in other ways, aren't you? There's I think sort of geographically, I think you're from a similar area. But also I do want to get into your 5, of course, but I think this is a good opportunity for us to talk about your other passions. So Culture Lab is your business. And from what I can see, you know, it feels quite personal. It feels like you're actually on a bit of a mission to change how people view their own cultures, how they present them, or how they even embody them. So it isn't just words. It's actually, you know, really truly understanding who you are as a company, who you are as individuals within that company, and what you say to the market, and is it authentic? So I want to talk a bit about that, and I'll let you take over from that in a minute. But I'm also really hoping we get into a bit of, I don't know, tech speak, because I know you're mad on AI as well, and I kind of am. And I like talking about it. I'm not an expert by any stretch. I actually deleted most of my files off this thing the other day. This podcast, which I think I've already confessed on another podcast. That's how tech bad I am. But when it comes to new things, new innovation, particularly where I feel it may advance us, I think I can get quite excited about it. So I'm hoping we can cover that.
Yeah,
And also,
I'm sure we can.
and also a little bit of, I don't know, I suppose I'm a bit apprehensive about this next thing I want to say, but there's a part of you that champions the working classes as well. And I want to get into a bit of what that means to you, what that actually, where that comes from, what you're hoping to, what's your message, what you're hoping to see happen. And also a bit of definition, because I sometimes see myself as working class and then I remember I'm from Surrey, but then I'm sort of bootstrap type, left home at 16 with nothing. So I think I might get in the club. But let's get into that as well, if we may. But that's how we met. Tell me, I've kind of set this up for you. How would you introduce yourself? How would you want to say who you are, what you're all about?
Yeah, it's interesting because it always depends on who I'm talking to. But given we're covering all the different dimensions, it's a little bit more of a messy one, really. I would probably describe myself as someone that likes bringing people together, endlessly curious, too much energy, and I would say mildly creative, but really just in stealing other people's ideas and repurposing them and sticking them together with other things. I've worked in advertising and marketing for, God, what am I now, 39, so what's that? Long old time, 18 years. Oh, Jesus, that's not what I need on January 5th. Yeah, 18 years. But a lot of these things they're all connected. So what I described earlier as my dad playing that Chemical Brothers record when I was 11, 12, like I was like a weird kid growing up. I was not like the other kids. I grew up in a place called Alfreton, which is this tiny working class ex-industrial town in Derbyshire. It's kind of between Derby and Mansfield is probably the best way of sort of geographically positioning it. And it's fine. Like it's like probably, I don't know, 2,500 people, famous or like locally famous for its high unemployment, high crime rates. It's also famous for being the sort of birthplace of Thornton's chocolatier. So, every but growing up, I was just surrounded by like white working class lads that were, deeply into football and all of the tropes that you could imagine. I'm sure there were people that I didn't know that were into some of the stuff that I was into, but I was just a weird kid because I had posters of people like Tony DeVitt on my wall, and everyone else had got Ryan Giggs or Roy Keane or I'm trying to think of football references now. Like everyone was just into sports, and that was fine, but it just wasn't my thing. And I felt like I usually describe myself as the kid that bought Detroit techno records, like made my own t-shirts and cut my own hair. Like I was weird. And I knew what I was doing was a way of expressing myself, but I didn't really realize that there were other people. And then a grandfather took me into W.H. Smith's. It would have been, around probably been about 12. And it was kind of awkward because we used to go in on a regular basis and I would treat it like a sort of library and he would just sort of wander around like kind of, it's a bit gruesome really, but like flirty. I just remember him always being really flirty with the staff, and that was like the sort of the sole reason for going in. Makes me feel so grubby now. But I just used to see it as an opportunity to basically just like go through the magazine racks, and I would quite methodically work my way through different sections just with this just like voracious hunger. Like one of my five is a woman called Maggie McKenzie, who's my grandma, and she's always just sort of push me to sort of just explore stuff, just dig in. Like there's always stuff to learn. There's always new stuff to kind of think of. And these are different grandparents. One's paternal and one's maternal. But I remember getting to the music section and getting Mix Mag and iDJ and Ministry Mag and music and all. And most of these magazines don't exist anymore, which also ages me. But I would open the pages and find like pictures of people, like brown and black people and like girls kissing girls and boys kissing boys and references to drugs and hedonism and peace, love, unity and respect, all of these things. And it was like, it was like stepping into a different universe, and it was incredible. Like I could feel like all of the sort of neurons in the back of my head light up like a sort of Christmas tree all in one go. And I just became obsessed. And I think I say it all the time when I'm talking to sort of people about why I'm so passionate about culture. it's because it gave me like a space to belong. It gave me like a community to be part of. Like I couldn't physically be there, but I could access these subcultures and communities through magazines, and eventually would find my way into like raves through older friends who I recognized through like different symbols and signs and language and music they were listening to. Like I would see in like sixth formers, like someone would have like a badge on, or they'd have like something sewn onto a backpack, or you'd hear them make reference to something that you'd read about, and you just kind of slightly sort of discreetly elbow your way into things. And you say, because I had the same references, then it's like it creates a sense of affinity. So culture saved my life, because otherwise I'd be miserable. Like if I hadn't had that experience, I'd still be in Alfreton. And there's nothing wrong with that. I was back at the weekend and nothing's really changed. And for some people, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I was just more hungry than that. I probably would end up being like a plumber or an electrician, and there's nothing wrong with those jobs. I would be terrible at them. I'd definitely be more affluent than I am now, but I'd be terrible at those jobs. And I don't think I find them fulfilling. And it's like cultures, it's given me a community to be part of. It's introduced me to friends. It's brought me to London. It's taken me around the world. Like it's all I did as soon as I got a job is I was looking for a job where I could start thinking and bringing some of the stuff that I'd experienced into the job. So I ended up working in advertising because I saw all the money that all these brands were spending on stuff that was like dire and kind of boring. And I could see some examples, because I think I was probably the first wave of students that would see like on campus like marketing, like experiential stuff, like Red Bull turning up with a Red Bull car and things like that. You'd be like, what's this? This is different. And so he took me into advertising. I built a sort of, I was going to say reputation. I built a bit of a sort of, maybe not in a good way, I built a bit of a sort of name for myself by just asking people like why they were talking about people like an economist would. Because they would constantly reference ABC One All Adults and segments, and it was as if people were a commodity, and it always felt, one, like ethically and morally dubious at best, but two, it just didn't reflect my experience of how people thought about themselves, or how I thought about myself.
Or how people found things and found each other, and like you said, that organic kind of scanning the world and saying, all right, I liked what you said about the badges and the recognizing the symbols and things. I think that continues even to our adult lives. As children, of course, it's really overt. And then, you can, I think back to my youth, I'm older than you. I mean, we actually dressed like overtly depending what music we were listening to. So if you were a punk, it was obvious. If you were rockabilly, it was obvious. If you were a mod. Whereas now I think it's more subtle. And so much, I suppose, now of young people's lives is online. So it's harder to sort of see into their sort of outer expression. But their inner worlds, online worlds, are sort of uber connected. They find their people very easily, actually. Whereas in my day, for sure, you had to do what you were talking about, which was like, who's wearing the, I don't know, new model army badge that I'm sort of looking for, or whatever it might be. So, and by the way, the new model army thing came to me, because I have a dear friend called Mark Bounds, and I hope he's listening. He's got 5,000 vinyls. Do you have more than 5,000, Jed?
Oh, God. There was about 5,000 when we moved house about 4 or 5 years ago. There are some more in the house now, and the books is the other problem as well. So there's maybe a few more. It's been about 4 or 5 years since. I'd hazard a guess at about 7.
Okay, you win.
Oh, I'm not sure that's winning. It's having to get a separate lorry when you move house is not winning.
But you know what? When you were speaking, you also remind me, and my family does tend to appear on this podcast. You remind me of my son. He works in advertising now. He works for a company called Wyden and Kennedy. I don't know if you know them.
I know Wyden's.
And so he's straight out of uni. He's absolutely, smashing it, as they say. And he's the same. He's always watching, listening, observing, always on trend, not on trend, before trend. He's like, he knows what's coming. And he's very, very culturally observant, is how I describe him. Me, I'm not sure I was that cool at the beginning, to be honest with you, Jed, but I definitely am. I'm not now. But he seems to be on the cusp of everything. And it's that same thing that you have, that curiosity, that genuine interest in how people think. How do they behave? Why do they make these decisions? How do they find each other? I think that's innate. I don't think you can teach people that. And I totally agree. All those ABC things and statistics and blah, blah, it's nothing. It's meaningless. Human beings don't work like that. We're not that convenient for people. So,
100%.
yeah.
The thing that I think, I mean, this is one of the reasons we launched Culture Lab. So I built this sort of reputation for just trying to help brands better understand how culture worked. And it was, I'm trained for nothing. I did English lit at university, and the best thing that came out of that is understanding how Marxism operated. But I guess that's three different chat. But I think the sort of personal experience you bring into it, and then you start, if you've got that curiosity, sort of looking at, oh, well, how does, I don't know, I think one of the first projects I ever did was around mummy bloggers and trying to understand what connected mummy bloggers to each other, and what, there's lots of outward rituals that you can look at, lots of signs and symbols and that stuff, but there's also values that sit at the heart of it. And the difference between, God, I'm really going back now, so I have to trawl my brain for this, but the difference between a net moms and a mum's net at the time, there were distinct value shifts between the two of them. And for a brand to be able to be additive, which is my big thing, is I think brands have got an active role to play in culture. It's only really in the last 30, 40 years that they've messed it up. But if you go back to the Medicis and Da Vinci, that sort of relationship between brands and culture, as patrons of the arts, is long standing. It's been around for a very, very long time. It's just the last, it's been abused, I would say, over the last sort of 30, 40 years, where it's been more extractive than additive. But the more you can help brands spend in a way that, or invest in culture and help build infrastructure and things like that, the stronger the culture can be. But you have to understand it to be able to do that. And you have to do something which is more than surface deep. So I built a reputation really for kind of going deeper and doing exactly what your son sounds like he's doing at Wydens, which is just I want to be in everything. I want to learn about everything. I want to find what are the systems that exist that are transferable. What's a model that you could use that will help people understand? And that eventually took me through various different strategy roles. I was at creative agencies, media agencies, PR agencies, digital agencies. I was at Snapchat for a few years as well. And I just got frustrated because there was nothing to help people properly quantify it. And to your point, I think often when we talk about culture, what we're usually defaulting to, or sort of shorthanding, is youth culture. And usually white youth culture, LA, New York, London, and everything else can go swivel. And the best example for this being just an absurd and just moronic approach is the Paul Weller haircut. The Paul Weller haircut is my favorite. So you see men in their late 60s through to I'm not sure I'm going to go as far as 80s. You see men of a certain age have still got that haircut. And with all the love in the world that I've got for Weller and Paul Weller fans, that is an absurd haircut. But it is a symbol of affiliation, a mark of being part of a community, which is, I'm a mod. I've got this ridiculous haircut where it looks like I've done it myself. But you don't, those people have still got it. Oasis last year rather, was a great sign of the fact people don't give up on popular culture. It's who they are. It's the group they belong to. It's the values they've got, the rituals they're part of, and those things matter. I think the thing that I've always railed against is this economist view of the world, that people are predictable and boring and self-interested. It's just not true. And we've got acres and acres of evidence to show from anthropology and ethnography that people aren't selfish and they're not predictable and they are a little bit sideways, and that's what makes life exciting.
And also you can't predict the age thing anymore either. The kind of classic categorization of the youth being this to what it is, 18 to 24, and then there was the 30 somethings and the 1830 holidays, and after 30 you're supposed to have just settled for daytime TV or whatever, evenings on the sofa with kids, and everyone fitted very, very conveniently into these categories. But I think our well-being and our youthfulness is extending now, such that I think about my little gang. I've got a little gang of friends, and we're all in our mid to late 50s, but we'll seek out a festival, we'll go to a day rave, we're full of fun. And the good thing, if you're a business out there, if you know how to tap into the 50 pluses, we've got lots of spare cash. We've much are high spenders. But again, if you think back to how people were thought about in the 50s, when I was young, I used to think people in the 50s were really old, and perhaps back then they were in their own mindset, but not anymore. I think we're all having a third wave. What are we calling it now? Third act. We're having a third act, Jed.
I think a lot of it comes down to how people are represented in advertising and media, because I do think it's, and again, some of this leads on to common people. Like, when I think about the types of people that I came into the industry surrounded by, they were all a bit accountant-like. Everyone deeply wanted to be a professional advertising executive. And it's can we swear? Can we?
Definitely.
Okay.
I encourage it.
Just utter bullshit. Like, it's not, it's not a profession. Like, it should not be seen as a profession, because there's no set rules. Like, a profession needs like a corpus. It needs like a sort of, these are the principles. I mean, we don't have that. Like, you've got the world's two biggest advertisers, or for a long time, like P&G and Unilever, and they both have entirely like diametrically opposite approaches to marketing. So to me, it's absurd to want to try and push advertising as a profession. But what happened as a result of people trying to establish it as a profession, and it's very serious, is it attracted a certain type of person that really wanted a very formulaic way to approach things, and that the ABC1 demographics, I'll stop going on about this in a minute, but the demographic approach meant if you were in your 50s, you were represented by the Bisto woman. Like, if you're a female in your 50s, it's like you're a homemaker, and like it's all about a big Sunday rest. And it's like, it's just, I don't think it's ever been true. Like, it's just it's just terrible, sloppy representation. And so I think you're right. I think people are now because they're more connected to each other. And, there's loads of positives. There's a whole barrel load of negatives to it as well, because you see the rise of things like the far right and things like that. But because it's easier to connect to people that are just like you, based on values and ethics and morals and beliefs, I think people are breaking free of some of the shackles of how they're represented in media, and then thinking, do you know what? Like, I'm 52. If I want to go to a festival and stay up until Tuesday, I will. That's fine. And I'm here for it. I think it's a world that we've always existed in. It's just never been shown, and more the shame.
Brilliant. All right. Well, we're definitely like-minded, Jed. And I'd love to introduce you to my son one day, because you two would just, bounce off to everybody's walls together. Listen, I think my only sort of final word on that subject really is, I do believe in, obviously the title of this podcast is People Are Everything, but I also really do believe in individuality. I believe in tribe. I believe in finding your people, finding your culture. But as I get older, I'm more and more convinced that you can't really pigeonhole any of us, because we're so complex. We're so, everybody, if I speak to on this thing, in life, and I'm one of those really irritating dinner guests who really wants to know people. I can't do small talk very well, but everybody's living their own kind of individual version of the life that's been gifted them, with some tentacles out into community. But if you strip that all away, there's every one of us is deeply unique. And, quite how anything takes off en masse is crazy to me. I watch things blow up and I go, where did that start? It reminds me a little bit of football chanting. Who starts it? And how does everybody just quickly get in unison with that? But then it fades away and everyone's back watching the game. And it just reminds me, like, when I see things blow up and come back down again, and trends come and go, and this, that, and the other, it just feels a bit like that for me. Like, somebody started this. I'm not going to do it, but that whole 6-7 thing just did my head in. It's like just one guy going like this, and then suddenly it's a global sensation, and then it will fade away and it will go. But anyway, I don't know what that means, other than, I don't know, it's exciting, isn't it, and interesting. So that's all I have to say.
It's fascinating, and it's one of the motivations behind launching Culture Lab was to try and bring some science and rigor to all of that. So 6-7 such a good example. Labubu is a good example.
Yep.
They all come from similar sorts of. There's like a whole etymology that you can trace back because there's, we've got more data than we've ever had before. So it's easy to trace things. What's difficult or has been difficult is applying any sort of rigor. But you only have to go back, 200 years to Marx and Durkheim and Max Weber, and they had it nailed then. It's just we've never brought those things together. So looking at the world like an anthropologist and applying that sort of mindset to big data is kind of, it was the reason we set up Culture Lab. My friend, when you were talking about individuality just then, my friend Gabby, a guy called Gabby Kahane, again, was on the shortlist, but didn't make it into the 5, but would be a really interesting person to speak to. He used ages ago, he's just full of these little diamonds. He talked about the little black dress syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, little black dress is such a fascinating thing because you put like black tie or black dress on an invite and everybody knows what the rules are.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to tip up in a sort of like a red dress or in the wrong costume. But they all want to put a tiny spin on it that's just them.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's fascinating because it's and you hit on it a second ago, it's the tension between everybody wants to demonstrate their uniqueness, but they all want to fit in with the group that they're in.
Absolutely.
And I think it led a couple of years ago, I again, like, this is such a plannery strategist way of thinking about the world, but we're always like asked by clients to come up with what's the insight. And it's always like this, without getting into rants, there's so much of this that goes around where people talk about sort of like universal insights. There aren't really, as far as I'm concerned, there are only 2 universal insights. 1, everybody suffers.
Yeah, 100%.
And 2, everybody wants to belong.
Yeah.
There are very few people that do not want to belong.
Yeah, honestly, I gave me goosebumps because I totally live those 2 premises for how I approach everybody. And how I even look at it for myself is absolutely those 2 things. You can walk into any room and just sit back and just observe, and everyone's in some level of pain.
Mm.
And that everyone's sitting there going, please see me, please like me, please know me. Can I be myself here? Am I safe here? Can I trust the people around me? Can I relax? And I'm totally with you on that, Jed. Oh, good. Oh, I'm looking forward to this. Well, the first thing I ever ask people before we get into the 5 is, how did you find choosing?
Now, I'm a planner by mentality and trade. And so I did have a long list, but I'm also I'm also prone to bouts of spontaneity, which is not very planning-ish at all. And so I made my long list, and then I just instinctively picked the ones off the list that I was like, actually, like, chronologically, these are the people that I think have probably had the biggest impact on me. Like I said at the top, there are definitely some like notable exceptions or some sort of honorable mentions. My wife is one of them. She's definitely given me like a clearer view of what it means to live like a truly compassionate, creative and courageous life. Like, she is incredible. But I also didn't want to put her on because I thought that might be a little bit obvious. And then my dad's on that would have been on the list because of the force feeding of Charlie Parker and music and God knows what else. But again, like, I thought, like, it's kind of like it's a bit straightforward. There's also a guy that I used to work with called Paul Rollinson, who is sort of like close to being a professional ultra runner, like an athlete, and took a little spark I'd got in me for running and turned it into like a roaring bonfire. And it's been, again, like it's been instrumental in running for me, and running has, without a doubt, changed my life. Like, made all of it better. I'm much more annoying than I've ever been, but I'm definitely much more healthy, both mentally and physically and spiritually than ever before as well. But again, I went through the list. I've got my 5. And some of them I'm going to stick to them.
I like the honourable mention thing. I might start bringing that in as a format.
Oh, but it's a cheat code, though, isn't it?
It's a cheat code. It is a cheat code. But I don't know, in my experience so far, and we're in my 4th season now, which is great. But it's like everyone cheats, because I think it's actually quite hard. I really do
It
think
is.
it's quite
It's
hard.
really hard. And you don't want to miss someone out in case they're listening back and they're like, "Oh, I can't believe I
What's
was
the
doing
question?
this."
Actually, going back to Jess for a minute, she had some classics. So I think one of hers was an Uber driver. I can't remember what that Uber driver said. I have to go back and listen to it. It was something deeply profound that made her think about it forevermore. And one was a guy that they used to go clubbing with called Charlie Hat or something Hat. And he was just a guy that turned up in a hat and raved with them. They never knew who he was, but it was always like as long as he was there, the night was good type thing.
Yeah.
And so I think some people's approach to this, that's why I asked the question, because I think everyone's so different.
And they were such Jess suggestions as well.
Yeah.
Like her 5 was yeah. They were very Jess.
Oh, she's brilliant. All right, should we just do it then? Who's number 1 on the list?
Now I've said it. Now I've said I'm going to try and avoid all the obvious ones. I'm going to name a very obvious one. It's my gran, or as I called her growing up, my nanan. And this is a woman called Maggie Mackenzie, who is incredible. I spent a lot of time with her over Christmas just gone, because she is unfortunately she's experiencing early onset dementia and Alzheimer's, which is a lot. But she's we're still at the stage where we can find it funny. Which I think is is a really good example of just who she is and what she's taught me. She's just been an incredible role model for living a nice life, like caring about people, being compassionate about people, going out of her way to help others. She early in her life, so she had a terrible upbringing. So she was in what's the best way of putting it? Neglected in a neglectful and abuse-filled household for the sort of first 4 or 5 years of her life, and then her and her 5 siblings got put up for adoption all separately, and didn't speak to each other or didn't see each other for God, I think it was something like 13 years until they were 18, and then could find ways to contact each other.
Wow. And
you kind of, and again, she would have been going through that the sort of the post-war care system, which there's lots of things that have come out about the care system in the sort of the 50s and the 60s, the 40s and the 50s it would have been, wouldn't it? About it being some challenging things going on, and yet you've never met a nicer, joyful, more compassionate person in your entire life. I spent so much time with her growing up because I had some of my own household experiences that were pretty gruesome. And she's just always been amazing. She's just always been an absolute pillar. She's taught me more than I think any other family member has about what it is to live like a truly rich life. She's always been helpful. So she was, I think when she had my mum really early, so I think she was probably 19 or 20, and then my mum was 20, 21 when she had me. So we live in a very young family. She went on to, I think she had my mum. She then went to college and trained to be like a uniform designer. Ended up working at the council designing uniforms. From there, she then went on to do lots of care work. So she became a carer for the elderly. She was doing care work until I think she was still doing it when she was 67, 68. So the people that she was caring for, some of them were younger than her. And again, just gives you the sort of indication of the type of person that she is. She's magic, and she's just given me a lot in terms of values and beliefs, and just how to live a life that's rich and full of joy and full of music and outdoors. She's a massive fan of getting still now. We were talking about the other day. She's got 2 little dogs. She can't remember the names a lot of the time, which again, we're still at the stage where it's funny and she's laughing about it. She's still, she has good days and bad days, but every single day she's into the routine of she gets up at 10:30 in the morning, unbelievably lazy. I'll never forget that. She's got her coat on and she's down to this place called Eyes Meadow, which is it's in a tiny little village in Derbyshire, and she just walks the same 2-mile stretch with the dogs, walks back, comes back, has a cup of tea, has a rollie, makes herself some, she tells me it's vegetables. I know it's not vegetables. I'm pretty sure it's cake for lunch. but she's in the same routine, and she's comfortable with her own company and the company of her dogs, and loves being outside, and massive fan of nature and exploring. And she's just always been one of those. Yeah, she's just always been such a sort of strong influence on me. For getting out, for having like solid, good routine, for being consistent about things. Like if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly, is something that just echoes between my ears constantly. And I've spent, like a wild amount of time with her growing up, and there were always people around. There was always music. There was always some food. It was just everything. Her kitchen always felt like a little community. And yeah, it's she's my number one by a long shot,
and deservedly so. I mean, I got a few questions, and a few observations. So, Nanan, first of all.
Yeah, I have no idea where this comes from. The only thing I can think of is that it's sort of, I think it's a Derbyshire thing. That's the only thing I can think of.
Is it? Because I've never heard it before. Nanan.
No.
I like it. So that's a sort of geographical thing, not your own personal kind of. Couldn't say grandma, couldn't say nan, preferred Nanan. Anyway, I just like it.
I think it's geographical, but it as like a sort of, as an adult male, is still referencing her. It feels weird saying it now, but yeah.
But my second question is, she sounds very much like this was where your love and guidance and all the kind of development action was happening. Was that in as complementary to what you were experiencing at home, or was this instead of or supplementary?
I think it was. At the time, I don't think I realised that. I don't want to get into it in lots of detail because I've done that on a podcast before and then had to pull the podcast.
Okay, don't do that.
So I don't want to do that. There was lots of laughter at home, and there was lots of joy at home, but there were also for every 50% of laughter and joy, there was 50% of like fury and rage and
yeah. So she was maybe your safest space, your best space,
100%.
And the way you describe the sort of heart of her home, it does feel kind of like that. It feels like this is where you went for whatever you needed, by the sounds of things. It's So no, I don't want you to go into anything that's going to make you uncomfortable at all. I was getting to that point really, which is sometimes it skips a generation where it's the sort of the grandparent level where, they've done their maturing, they've done their growing up. She's overcome a huge amount. So I have something to say about that as well in a moment. But you do see this kind of natural gravitation from the younger generation to the older with the middle parent, because they're still learning. I'm a parent. I get it wrong every day. My hope is I'll be a better grandparent than I am a parent. And sounds like, Maggie did that. And just to pause a little bit on her extraordinary story. I mean, I can relate in some levels. I'm one of 4 kids. Lost my mum when I was very small, and I reckon it was very tempting for my dad to have put us up for adoption. 4 kids in the 70s on his own. He didn't, and some might say that was a good thing. Some might say it wasn't. So there's a story there too, Jed. But to be split from my siblings, much as we, squabble and fight even to this day, never changes. That to me would be the worst thing. To not see them for 13 years or so. That's to me is a cruelty almost that thankfully mostly now they try and avoid. But the age that she grew up, I guess that would be pretty standard.
Yeah, it's and I didn't know any of this until I went to live with her briefly when I was about 14, 15, and we were driving I think we were driving past. So when she had my mum, she did make contact with her birth parents again. And we were driving past, I think she only saw them once or twice, but was driving past where they lived, and she made reference to it. And then, like, the whole story just spilled out. And she, in my mind, she was just like a superhero. She's just absolutely infallible. And so to see her sort of choking up and kind of experiencing this again was like a really important lesson that, like, Well, there's a few things. One, that just because something terrible's happened when you're younger doesn't mean it has to continue to dominate your life for the rest of the days. Like, I read the Nassim Taleb book, The Black Swan, when I was about 19, 20. And there's lots of good bits in it, but it's like a deeply like mathematical focused book. And the only thing I took out of it was just because something's always been a certain way doesn't mean it always will. And he was referring to stock prices and certainty and things like that. And I was thinking about childhood and being miserable and things like that. Like, just because something's always been a certain way doesn't mean it has to be like that forever. And she's an amazing example of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I had no idea that had been a story. And she, like you just said, she's still to this day, like, squabbles with her brother and her sisters like crazy. And I think she's the oldest of them. In fact, she might be second oldest. And they're just still like teenagers, like when they're together.
I think.
And they've each.
No, I was saying none of us really grow up, I think, ever.
No.
Not one with our siblings. Or I noticed something the other day. It's like watching my grown-up friends going into their parents' homes, even though their parents are in their 90s. They just revert. Like, I'm literally looking at them going, you'll be putting your hand in the cornflake box in a minute and helping yourself, or drinking milk from the milk bottle in the fridge. You know what I mean? It's like you just revert. And I see it with my own kids. They're in their 20s now, and they walk in the door and they're completely different people to what they are outside of it. But no, and there is a direct link, I think, through adversity and kindness. I think it's on a plus side, what you're saying is correct, I believe, which is, it's an incredible testament to your grandmother's Nanan's character, that she can pull out so much compassion and caring for the world and have this joyous approach to everything, and just create this environment where people want to be with her, and long may it continue. But I guess that the darker side of that is there is a theory that it's linked. It's a trauma response, actually. There's something about early stage trauma that makes you super responsible, super aware of other people's needs, kind of overtly pleasing, but not in a simpering way, but in a wanting to way. It can come from the worst of places, but as a pathway from trauma is the best one. You know what I mean? Because you could go in different pathways if you had that kind of childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. And she's thankfully gone in that direction. And my own last thing to say about it, we've got so much, we should have a meet for a beer, Jed. I was told that how you are in post-anesthesia, how you are when you're drunk, and how you are a little bit in dementia, because dementia touches a lot of us. My dad succumbed to dementia. Says much about who you are. So what I mean by that is, I spoke to a nurse once when my son came round from anesthesia, and he was the funniest I've ever seen. My son is funny anyway, but oh my God, he had the nurses in stitches. And they said to me, this one's going to be great fun for life, because how people are in post-anesthesia is kind of how they are. Some come around like shouting and screaming, some sobbing, but my son was just cracking the funniest jokes. I mean, completely unintelligible, but so funny. And I think a little bit about that with inhibition, because with dementia, one of the first things that goes is your inhibition, which is why people on early stage dementia can be a bit inappropriate at first. I remember when my dad was going through it, I was like, Dad, did you really just say that? But his whole journey of dementia was always, despite what was happening, humorous. He was always, funny with the nurses and funny with everybody. And he found even the most, I would call them fairly undignified, humiliating elements of his dementia, just made it funny. And, if your nan, I wish she didn't have it, but if that is how she's experiencing it, it's because it's actually who she is. So I just wanted to make that, because I don't know, just felt appropriate to say.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think I just definitely think there's a lot of truth to that as well. And one of the last things I was going to say is, I remember having a conversation with her when I was probably about 2021, and we were talking about me growing up. And she said, "Oh, I wish I could change it. I wish it could have been different for you." And I remember saying to her, "I don't, because if it would have been, I wouldn't have ended up how I am now." And she said, it's God, it's like stopped me in my tracks. And she was like, "That's exactly how I felt about
Yeah.
growing up as well."
Yeah.
And I think I convinced her to go to therapy about 5 or 6 years ago, because there's definitely a load of unresolved stuff. I mean, obviously loads of unresolved stuff, and she really didn't want to do it because she thought it'd be sort of unwinding things and opening stuff back up that she managed to put away. And I think she found it really useful. And the only reason that I'd suggest it is because I'd done it and had the same feelings of going through it. But it was like, actually, no, it's a useful thing for thinking about how you process some of that stuff. You can't get rid of it. You can't change it. And it's the same with the sort of the diagnosis she's got around Alzheimer's and dementia. Is like, she's not going to change it. It's not going anywhere, but she's going to deal with it the best that she can. And I just, there's just something beautifully pragmatic about going, do you know what? This is what we've got. This is where we're at. And this is part of the story. And we're just going to have to keep writing the next chapters to figure out where it goes. And it's, the word stoicism gets so overused, but there is just something, and I've avoided trying to sort of use it in that way, but there is just something so stoic about our attitude of like, just because it always has been a certain way doesn't mean it always will.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Well, Maggie Mackenzie, may you keep going strong. And I'm glad she made the top spot. So thank you for sharing that, Jed. Brilliant. All right. Well, let's do number 2, shall we?
This one's a bit more straightforward. And I think I've talked about this before from like an industry perspective. This is a guy called Marco Rimini. Now, I met Marco when I would have been about 25, 26. I was working at a WPP agency called Mindshare, and I'd just been made head of strategy, which was, for me, a big fucking deal. Now, there's all sorts of things around why it shouldn't have been a big fucking deal. And I'm talking about this in caps. Like, in my head, it was like, become head of strategy, become CSO. It was like my entire personality for about 5 or 6 years. And it was a terrible thing to have done. But anyway, I got made head of strategy. I think there was a death or someone got rid of it. And there was no death. I got made head of strategy. And I'd been put on like this sort of fast track management scheme WPP thing, which I was terrible at. I'm just not made in that sort of way. But as part of that, I got given a mentor, and Marco was my mentor. And Marco was global. He was worldwide CEO of Mindshare. So he's quite a big deal, but he was also very, very low key. And I had a meeting with him after I'd just been promoted. And I was like, Marco, like, I know that we have like quite rational discussions and they're always quite sort of like nuts and bolts, but I'm going to have to bring you something a bit more emotional. Like, I don't know what I'm fucking doing.
Help me.
I've got this like this new title and I don't know what it means to do this thing. And 2, I'm surrounded by like 25, 26 of like the best, most senior strategists I've ever worked with, people that I look up to that are largely all 10 years older than me. Like, what is going on? And he just laughed at me, and he was quite, I don't know if laconic's the right word. He was super, super laid. I think laconic always kind of suggests like, oh, not asked, but like he was very laid back. And he just kind of like leans back on this chair and he's like, Jed, you've just got to make yourself useful. That's all it is. And I remember coming out of this like mentor session thinking, what sort of terrible advice is this? Like, make yourself useful. And I was like spitting feathers about it for ages. So I did like my sort of natural response to a situation where I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. I like buried myself in books. And I went back to like JWT, planning guides, Stephen King, who was like one of the first, he was like the sort of the pioneer, like account planner strategist. Everything basically has come in the global advertising industry. Everything that even remotely resembles planning or strategy comes from this guy called Stephen King. He's the first account planner at JWT back in late 60s, early 70s. And there was a book, he passed away, I think, in the 2010s, and there was a book commemorating him by taking all of his best essays and best work and then taking like a contemporary or someone that he'd worked with and like analysing it on the other side. So you'd have like this beautiful essay on one side and then the sort of analysis from a sort of contemporary on the other side. Anyway, I'm burying myself in this book one night. It's quite late. I think it was a Saturday as well. It was just you can kind of tell where I'm at. Like I'm not out at a party. I'm
No.
reading advertising books on a Saturday night. I was not in a good spot. I'm going through this book and I'm kind of still sort of seething in the background about Marco's terrible advice. And then I'm about halfway through the book, turn the page, and I see Marco Rimini on the page.
Oof.
And I'm like, okay, cool, great. So why is Marco in this book? So then I started going, because I was, 25, 26. So I was like was maybe a little bit more ignorant than I should have been about Marco. So I started looking up Marco. It turned out that not only was Marco employed by Stephen King, the father of planning and strategy, he was his protege. And so all of a sudden start to rethink this advice that Marco's giving me.
He might actually know a thing or two, Jed. You might actually listen to him.
So then I had my next meeting with him. I was like, Marco, I had no idea who you were. And he was like, what? And I went back through the whole thing. And I was like, I was so dismissive of your advice. And he just laughed. And he's like, you have to realize that the only thing, like, one, it's not a profession. Everybody's just trying to be useful, trying to move the work forwards, trying to move the team forwards, trying to move the individual forwards or the business or the department or whatever it is. Everyone's just trying to move things forwards and move things on. The best thing that you can do is just make yourself useful in that process.
Yeah.
And I think about it all the time. Mainly, there's the pragmatism side of it. There's the reality of running a team or mentoring people. There's all of that side of it. But it's the sort of death of ego stuff that I think is really fascinating. Because I'd gone into this head of strategy role thinking, not quite made it, but like, I'm like, Billy Big Bollocks, how this is going to be great, like incredible. And actually it's egotistical, and that's not going to push anything forwards, because you're just pushing yourself forwards rather than everybody else. And so it's something that I think about on a weekly basis. Like if I get stuck, I still think now, like Marco would just be telling me, just you're making it too complicated. Just make yourself useful.
I love that. Actually, I'm trying to think of sort of more corporate speak versions of it. It's that speak to express, not to impress. There's that, you hear that sometimes, don't you? And there's definitely how are you moving things forward? I don't know, maybe it's something I just say a lot, because I know I do say that a lot. How have you moved the business forward today? Seems to be something I definitely know I say that a lot. But I love what you're saying about this idea of profession. What I'm hearing is it's not a profession, it's an activity. It's like, and it's an energy. So it's not got the structure and formalities. So I suppose, does that relate to all creative industries? Is it specifically for the creative industries, or do you think actually we could apply this to pretty much anything?
I mean, I would describe it as a craft. That's how I would describe it. Like it's something, and it's the same when I'm talking with the team that we're building out at Culture Lab. It's the same when I'm mentoring. Like the first thing that you get to, whether it's an idea, whether it's a research document, whether it's a presentation, a speech, whatever it is, that's not the finished thing. That's the clay on the board. Like your job now is not to get to the first draft, it's to get to the final draft. And so the sort of the loss of ego of like, I made a good thing, and the pragmatism of like consistency of like keeping working at it and whittling it down. It's I'll talk about someone later, like my fifth woman called Resh Sidhu, who I work with at Snapchat. Like the craft and importance of attention and consistency and application is the most important thing, because having the right answer on day one, no one has that. That's not how it works. It's not. It's the sort of the lazy approach is to go, here's the thing, I'm done, I'm moving on to the next thing. But to turn something from like an 8 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10, it takes more effort to do that last 20% than it does to do the first 80, but it's worth the effort.
Yeah. No, I get that. An idea of craft, and I suppose then my brain went to practitioners then. So these are practitioners as opposed to professionals.
Yeah.
Kind of how I was hearing it when you were speaking. Well, listen, did he stay your mentor for a while? Did you benefit from his wisdom again, or was it like a one-hit wonder?
I think as I came, it enabled us to flip into a much more pragmatic approach to like addressing challenges. So I think he mentored me right up until I left WPP. So it was a good sort of 3 or 4 year stint.
Oh,
And again, like just a very, not a big egotistical, like, again, the fact that I didn't know that he was ex-JWT and was like the first wave of planners, it kind of gives you, it tells you everything you need to know. Like, he was not a big shouty person. The way that we've launched Culture Lab, so we launched nearly 2 years ago now, we didn't do a big fanfare and it's going to be this and it's going to be that. We just got on with the work.
mm-hmm.
And the work should, like, the industry, I think most industries are filled with people that are talking about what they're going to do rather than showing you what they've done.
Yeah.
I'm a massive believer in the importance of deeds, not just words.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that comes from Marco and him just conducting himself in a specific way where he would come in and he would like take a pitch from being a losing pitch deck into a winning pitch deck with like 2 or 3 sort of brushstrokes that nobody else could see, but he spent so long honing his craft that he just knew what was right, and then he'd disappear and he would never get the credit for it. But it wasn't about credit, it was about pushing things forwards and just making himself useful.
I love it.
So I'm a big fan of that.
Well, here's to making, well, all of us being useful. I actually think that's a great way to be generally, isn't it? In everyday situations. All right, well, here's to Marco. Who would be number 3 on your list?
Tim Lawrence. So Tim Lawrence, for those of you that aren't into nerdy music books, wrote Love Saves the Day, which was the first historical account of David Mancuso and the Loft parties. So right up until, I suppose, Tim wrote this book, it was broadly consensus that disco and Studio 54 led to eventually to the sort of the acid house revolution that then eventually led to what we now know as dance music. And Tim knew different because Tim invested all of his time in understanding what was happening around Studio 54 and found David Mancuso, who was running these parties called The Loft. The first one was called Love Saves the Day. And he elevated Mancuso to his rightful status effectively as like the father of dance music, or the sort of the father of the modern day nightclub. And the book is about 25,000 pages long, and I've read it. It's one of the only books that I've read more than once. Because I read it on a bit of a whim. I actually was in a record shop in London called Phonica, when a man who's sadly passed away recently like thrust a copy in my hands and was like, you need to read this, because I was picking up loads of disco records and it had just come out at that point, I think. And the book just, again, it's an amazing book. Tim, I've gone on to meet Tim quite a few times, gone to a lot of his parties, spent a lot of time talking to him, and it's led into, like, the book led me to communism, the importance of community, like rent parties, and like the focus on, I suppose, what we'd now call like paying it forward, but making sure that things were accessible and the importance of those things, and making sure that, you know, people have got access to a space and a set of people that they might not have otherwise. And it's what led to Love Will Save the Day, which I think we touched on a little bit at the top, but started about 10 years ago as a newsletter because I'd stopped DJing quite so much. My daughter had just been born, but I still had that sort of desire to share music with people. Like, DJing was great. Going to parties like 6 nights a week was fun. And all the stuff that comes with it was really fun. My lack of brain cells now, maybe less so, but I would definitely wouldn't change it. But all of it was always in service of sharing music with people. I love that feeling of putting something on the platter, whether it's a record or whether it's an MP3, and someone coming rushing over and being like, "What is this?" It's like the best thing in the world. And when you find something that you're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I've never heard this before," and then you play it, someone comes over and like, "Oh, this is great, isn't it?" Like that moment of sharing stuff with people is what drove me to DJing in the first place. And then when I stopped doing that, because having as you know, like, having children means that it's probably not advisable to be in fabric at 5 o'clock on a Monday morning. Yeah. I'd still have friends like calling or texting and asking like, what's good, what should I be listening to, what's in Phonica, what's in Sounds of the Universe, etc., etc. So I started sending out like a little email newsletter to a few people, that then they added more people to it, and it became a bit more of a circular, and then it became like an actual newsletter. And then it became like just before lockdown, a couple of people did some posters for it, like they were already part of the community. Then they got picked up by Giles Peterson and a few other people, and then people started ordering the posters from these people. So all of a sudden, like, it went from being nothing, a newsletter from my dad, to something that was like was quite big. And there's like 5,000 people on this newsletter now, and that then led into WhatsApp community, which eventually led into the radio station now. But the Tim Lawrence book sowed the seeds for all of that, because it's called Love Will Save the Day. It also sowed the seeds for common people as well, and the importance of making space for people and recognizing like different attributes of intersectional attributes effectively. And I'd not really thought about class at all, but some of the things that he was describing, I started to think, oh, actually, that seems really familiar. He's describing these things as being like working class. And I just felt like an alien in the advertising industry. I thought it was just like a personality thing more than anything for years. And then I realized it's because almost everyone that I was surrounded by went to private school, and they all talked about where they went skiing at Christmas and where they'd summered and all of these like phrases and the stuff that we were talking about earlier, like stuff that just was I didn't have those things.
Yeah.
And so that kind of sowed the seeds for common people as well. I think a lot of that did. So yeah, Tim Lawrence is my number 3. And the book Love Saves the Day is an incredible book. There's also a follow-up book called Life and Death on a New York Dance Floor, I think it's called. It's just behind me somewhere. And then there's another on Arthur Russell as well. The Arthur Russell book is exceptional. It is, I highly recommend that.
Well, I love the fact that he came into your life, kind of set an entire trajectory, which has obviously become, a very important pursuit and passion of yours, but also that you've got to meet him and know him, and now he's just sort of like a friend. I find that quite remarkable. I'm not going to profess to know the ins and outs of that whole movement. I think it just about passed me by. I think I was either too young, or I would have been too old, I think, for it.
No, you definitely would have been too young.
You think?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to work out when all that would have kicked off, because I was born in 1970. So
the Love Saves the Day party, the first one, was either 69 or 70.
Okay, fine. I was too young then. I never get to say that. I was too young, Jed. But I'm certainly not as cool as you, so I think some of these references are over my head, so I'm not going to sort of dive into it. But I do love the impact that he's had. And also this idea, I mean, are we going to talk about common people? Because I'd really like to sort of segue a little bit on that. Because I feel a little bit, I don't know, like I want to explore it with you, because how you just described it then. So I don't want to move off Tim too rapidly in case he's listening right now. Sorry, Tim. Thank you for everything you've done for Jed and everything that he now goes on to do. But I just need to grab him back, because I want to talk to you about feeling a sense of class distinction in the world, because I experience this actually quite a lot. And I want to get your take on it. So I work in, my day job is sort of, I work in and around the sort of private equity space. And it's similar, like, I know I belong because I feel extremely comfortable and well loved and respected. And there's, it's a lovely feeling. I walk into the office and it's lots of hellos and lots of friendliness. But it's the detail around those kind of things you mentioned. Like, I mean, nobody says, where did you summer, other than a certain class of person. You and I would not say that. We'd say, where did you go on holiday this summer? No one summers anywhere, do they? And skiing was something you did on a ski slope in where I was anyway. We had a ski slope at the school, but no one ever went skiing. And you know what I mean? It's like I grew up in a normal, comprehensive, left home at 16, bootstrap kind of girl. And yet I find being in and around people who've had that life growing up, there's something charming about them. There's very occasionally you meet people who, let's call it, how can I be kind? Maybe unaware of their advantage. What did I read the other day? It's like there's a certain politician, I won't say his name, he was born 3-0 up and believed he scored all the goals. I think is something that someone said. And occasionally you meet people like that in my world, but rarely they seem to be very nice people who are aware of their advantages. And there's something quite quaint about some of the things that they say. But it is a reminder of class differences. And I don't know, I just want to get your take on it, whether or not you feel that there is any kind of true social mobility in the world, or do you think we're always kind of called out on it in subtle ways? Do you think it can ever go away, this whole idea of social mobility, and can we all just kind of see each other as Julia and Jed eventually, or do we always ask who's gone to what school and, you know, where did you summer?
It's a really good question. So to start on common people, like this seeds were definitely sown with Tim. It was a sort of a really exciting moment of my life where I came into contact with a couple of other different people. A woman called Lisa Thompson, who's my recommendation to speak to as well, who'd just written an essay for the IPA, which is the Institute of Practitioners of Advertising, which is the sort of industry body for advertising. And I've been asked to mark the essay along with a whole host of other essays. And it was the first time I'd thought about class within a career context, because she'd written an incredible essay about class being the sort of the elephant in the room of the industry. I also met a guy called Tom Armstrong, who I spend a lot of time with both of them still. Tom actually works with us at Culture Lab now as well. And he was a magazine publisher and editor, and come into contact with him a few times, and we'd spent a bit of time hanging out with each other and just having coffee and chatting and stuff. And class came up a couple of times, and I think we were just trying to kind of figure each other out a little bit. The least thing happened at the same time. At the same time, I was at Mindshare, and I won't name names because it'd be terrible, but I was sat in a briefing where we were talking about Butlins, and you sit in the usual briefing, like we were talking about earlier, it's the demographic thing again. And it's a big old room of people. There's maybe 15, 20 people in the room. Someone stands up to talk about the audience and says, "Oh, this is Council House kids, like aspirational. It's the kids that used to get their PE kit out of the Lost and Found. Like, it's the real chavvy kids that go to this." And like growing up, like Butlins was aspirational for us. Like, we would go to Blackpool or Skeg or Ingle Mills, if I'm being honest, which is even lower rent than Skeg. And like the idea of going to like a Butlins or what was the other one? I think the other one was called Oasis at the time. It's like these places were like, they were like proper sort of posh holidays.
Yeah.
And so like lots of little things like that happen again and again and again and again. You realize that you're not quite like everybody else. And like you said, it's really easy to mask class because you can learn the words, you can learn the phrases, you can learn the references, but there's still something that marks you out as being slightly different from everybody else. And usually it's sort of, it's your financial precarity.
Yeah.
And so I was having this conversation with Lisa and Tom independently, and then we brought it all together. And there's a couple of other people involved. One of them is called Sarah Sutton, another guy called James Hillhouse, and they're my two recommendations for people to speak to. A woman called Emma Hopkins as well, and Louise Richardson. And I was like, well, let's just set up a WhatsApp group and see what happens, because maybe we get like 20 people just like us that are chatting, and we've got like a little community. And there was already a WhatsApp group full of us over the day, and I knew it was like a simple way of building a community out quite quickly. And it just went off like a bottle rocket. Like, I sent out a tweet, sent out an Instagram post, and within 24 hours there's 350 people in there, and it continues to grow now. I think there was never really a plan. So we got interviewed by like Music Week and Bookseller and Campaign Magazine, a bunch of other places, straight at the Times as well. After we had to sort of post-rationalize a plan for what it is that we were doing. And Louise Richardson came up with the name. She's now, I think she's marketing director at Pinterest across EMEA. And she came up with the name. And in all honesty, I said, it's a terrible name. Like, it sounds too dismissive, what's the phrase? I can't remember, like self-deprecating. That's what I'm looking for. It's too self-deprecating. And actually turned out everyone else was like, no, it's a great name. We should definitely, and it's a gift, because the purpose of Common People really is to try and make common people more common in the creative industries, because it's one of the industries alongside, if you put it up against law, accountancy, investment banking, if you put it up against any of like the big service industries or financial industries, it pales in comparison to the sort of class representation in all of those. Like I think it's the last big sort of industries audit that was done, it was at 7% of people in the industry from working class backgrounds, which is scandalous. Like even law, which is like the next lowest, is like 12. It's unbelievable.
I never would have guessed that, actually. That's really shocked me.
But it's because it's easy to mask, and so it's easy to mask both ways. So as a working class person in the industry, you can mask as being middle class, but equally what you get a lot of in the industry, which I think is even more insidious, is a lot of middle class people masking as working class people, and they've got the references, and you know, a lot of, I would argue, and again gets me in trouble sometimes, but I would argue some of the best, most innovative, exciting things in culture come from the working classes. They come from people that don't have anything, so they have to make something. And you know, you see examples of that left, right, and centre. What happened after we launched is we had to come up with a strategy pretty quickly. I read a book called The Class Ceiling, which is a great book, and I'd recommend it to anyone. I also read a book called Poverty Safari, which is also excellent. And what I slowly started to sort of piece together was that the problem isn't class structure. The problem is the idea of social mobility. Mm-hmm. Because the very concept of social mobility suggests that people should be aspiring to the class above them, and that there is an idea of something above them. So what we started talking about quite quickly, and we were partnered with the Social Mobility Foundation for a long time, and we tried to get them to change their name into the sort of Financial Mobility Association, because foundation, because it's not like, I quite like being from a working class background. Like if we think about class, like class is not just money. Class is economic, social, and cultural. Mm-hmm. So economically, for me to talk about myself as being working class now would be absurd. I'm not. Like I'm in a garden room at the bottom of a house in Leigh-on-Sea. Like it's just not. I'm not. But socially and culturally, I definitely am. Like I still have a bunch of friends that I went to school with growing up. I still hang around in very similar circles. I've got some real fancy friends for sure. But culturally, like all my references, all my stories, they're all working class. Yeah. And so what we try to push for is people thinking about financial freedom and financial mobility rather than class mobility, because I don't want to be middle class.
I know. Do you know what? That is so refreshing. I think financial mobility is right. And to a point of some. We're getting a little bit deep here now, Jed. But I was forced to think about. I was on a podcast recently, and I was forced to think about my attitude to money, because this guy was a wealth manager, and I just said, I work in and around money, but I've never been particularly partial to it. I don't like it in some ways. I like just enough to live the lifestyle I want, but I don't like the idea of accruing any. It feels risky and burdensome. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "It feels like my life would change too much. And I really love my life. You know, I love my friends, my people, my like you say, the references. I know where I belong. I know where I fit. I've got fancy friends too. I can dip in and out of any, up and down the social strata. I'm comfortable. But if a big chunk of money plopped into my lap, I think I'd probably spend most of my time thinking, where could I put it that wasn't with me? You know what I mean? I'd probably invest it in something, as in somebody else's business, or look to start some sort of foundation, or, anything, rather than have it in my bank account, because I would worry that my friends and people around me would feel differently towards me, that I would find that I did have to move in different circles to what I was used to, and change would happen. And honestly, I'd rather give it all away than lose my friendships, lose my place that I've curated over all these years. And I love my references. Only people, I don't know, I'm watching something at the moment, and anyone listening here is probably going to go, what? They won't believe that I find this person absolutely charming and hilarious. There's a woman on Insta at the moment called Chugly Girl. Have you heard of her?
Oh, I don't think I have.
Chugly Girl. All right. Her whole shtick is to cook, but in a way you've never seen. to show how to put on makeup in a way you've never seen, and to wax her face in a way you've never seen. And there's something so uniquely joyous about how she does all three. And she has me in fits, and I can't stop watching her. I think she's so funny and very, very common people in terms of how she talks and her references. But she's so I don't know. You know, when some people just seem to have the language and the cultural references and everything that just resonate with you.
Yeah.
Even though I'm older, she's probably only in her 20s, maybe early 30s. But check her out, because she's absolutely blowing up, to use my my son's way of speaking. But she's really interesting, and I love the fact that I love that. I love the fact that I find that entertaining and interesting, as opposed to, I don't know, where money might take me to have to be somebody I'm not. And I know who I am. So I've always been a bit avoidant of I don't know, I know a lot of millionaires, but I've never really been that, I don't know, it's never been a goal of mine to accrue money.
I think if you've never had it, why would you, like, if you're happy without it, it's, I don't know, there's something, I don't know, maybe it's a values or beliefs thing or something like that. But I think if you've never had it, whenever I've got it, it goes super quickly.
Yeah.
Because if you've never had it, you're not sad of losing it. And you're not really worried about losing it because you didn't have it to begin with and you were fine.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that the benefit, so that the sort of the thing that I think some people look at, the position that I would guess that you and I are both in a similar sort of position of, you're kind of, you're sort of, the reference is always to it's always a north-south thing, but I think it works on class lines as well. Like, I'm too posh for the north now, but I'm too poor for the south.
Okay.
And so you exist in this sort of like social cultural purgatory. And that's a very pessimistic way, negative way of looking at it. The way I would look at it is like, people like us get to be like weak ties. And the strength of weak ties is that they bond together lots of different communities. There's a whole like amazing paper by Granavata called The Strength of Weak Ties. And it's all about the connective tissue between lots of different areas and communities. And you get to be that person because you can mask, but you also recognize the different types of language and rituals and things that exist in all sorts of different places. And you can glue those people together in a way that they wouldn't naturally come together. And that's a beautiful thing. You get to bring those people together that wouldn't have been, that are now friends. Jess is a great example of those types of people. Like, she's such a strong weak tie.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think I think historically I would have looked at as being a sort of like purgatory, I definitely now see as a benefit. Like, yeah, you just get to get the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
bridging is a really nice way of putting it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And what I meant by, when I started my little monologue there, was about reframing it as financial mobility, because actually the only aspiration I have financially is that I can help I've got 2 children, help them at least begin a life of options. Nothing grand, but just having the choices that you want your children to have to make, be able to make in terms of career, or if they want to, take a risk and be an entrepreneur or something like that, that they can do that because they've got a small amount of security provided by me, hopefully, to enable them to do that. And also, if I am going to live to 103, which I have publicly stated, I might need some money behind me to keep me going. But that's all I ever think about. Listen, okay, good. I'm glad we got into that. Now, who's number 4? Let's do that.
Number 4 is a woman, another author called Emma Warren.
Mm-hmm.
And she's written a series of books. One's called Dance Your Way Home. I highly recommend that you read Dance Your Way Home because I think you will love it.
Okay.
And then the latest one, I can't remember what the latest one's called. It's Up the Youth Club, which is all about the importance of youth clubs and community spaces for space for culture. But the first pamphlet she wrote was called Document Your Culture. And it was all about the importance of documenting your culture, like your community, like making sure that you write down in or document in any way, write down, photograph, video, whatever it is, find some way of giving permanence to what you're part of. Because we live in a sort of relatively ephemeral space where we rent our archive from someone else that could just turn off at any one point.
Yeah.
And I remember reading the first few. There's another one about Steam Down as well, which was like the sort of the big jazz movement that came out of Deptford, I want to say. And she's incredible. Like, again, like someone else that I've sort of sought out to spend time with and has become a friend. She's a super passionate supporter of everything that we've been doing with Love Will Save the Day. She's a massive advocate for like radio and trying to get new people in. So when we took Love Will Save the Day from the sort of the seed with Tim Lawrence, it was Emma really that during lockdown, like quite a few like community radio stations shut down. And someone said to me, "Oh, well, would you ever think about doing something like that with the newsletter?" And I said, "That sounds like a terrible idea. I can't think of anything worse than trying to set up a community radio station at a time where loads of them are shutting down and people that have got actual professional experience in radio can't make it work. What difference do you think I could make in this whole thing?" And it was Emma that kind of gave me a nudge and a nudge and a nudge and a nudge and was like, no, you just try it, but just do it your way. And so we took the same principles of Mancuso and said, we'll make sure that this is community owned, community run, and like by and for the community, because we already had a community. And I think part of the mistake that a lot of people think about when they're setting up a radio station is the radio station is in service of something else. The radio station is to promote a shoe shop or a bar or a record label or whatever it is. And so you become a radio station looking for a community. And what we were from the very beginning was a community looking for a radio station. It's in service of the community. And so they're kind of entwined. And it was Emma that pushed this. And then we run things called open air, which is we run like a 4-week schedule. So it's week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Every 3 or 4 times during a year, there's a 5th weekend. So we run something called open air, which is where we encourage people who've never done radio, that are from historically marginalized backgrounds, that are just passionate about music, to come and try radio. Like, we don't have a physical space, so we'll show you how to do it live at home, or we'll show you how to put a show together using Audacity, which is free audio software. We'll show you the whole thing. All you've got to do is bring your passion for music and your passion for sharing it. And so she's been she's been a tireless supporter of everything that we've been doing, and is effectively like our sort of station and community chair.
Brilliant. Well, I guess if Tim lit the fire, Emma actually just brought it to life, and just said, this is how we're going to actually do it. And there's a couple of things here, like Up the Youth Club, most definitely seems to be so missing from youth culture now. It's like it was such a thing. We're going up the youth club. It's just that's what you did when you were a kid. And there just aren't any. And I know they've just agreed to put some money in, haven't they, the government, to make some. But it seems to me, as kids, you always want to go and just be with your people. And unfortunately, what's replaced it is, a lot of, bedroom online stuff, and not always positive. And also street gang culture. That's kind of the where else can you hang out if it's not the street? Because you don't want to be at home with your parents, you want to be with your people. So this idea of, writing about the importance of youth clubs, I love that. And I suppose what you said about documenting your culture, do you ever get those flashback kind of memory lane things on Insta again, where somebody the other day sent one round that had Freeman Hardy Willis and Rumbelows and Iceland and Bee Jams and all these. I think it was something like what's now missing from the high street from when you were a kid. And I was just so grateful that somebody somewhere is taking the trouble to curate this 3-minute video that showed all these kind of nostalgia brands that are just they don't exist anywhere anymore. Now I know what you mean. It could all be shut off tomorrow, so even that will be lost. And no one does scrapbooks anymore. No one does photo albums. I've got photographs that are over 100 years old of my great-grandparents. in their First World War. And nothing I've taken in my lifetime other than a few prints is going to last that long. I just know it. All my memories, all my photographs will just disappear when I switch off my Facebook account. So it's like an idea of permanent record is really so obviously important, but we just don't do it, do we?
I just think having an archive, like if you think like going through those photos of like 100-year-old great grandparents is like it's such a specific process to go through with like your family or with friends, or to share them, to carry them. Like I've got a set. They're in the cupboard. They're like hidden in the back of the cupboard, but it's a set of encyclopedias from my great grandfather. I never met my great grandfather. I've got his encyclopedias, and I will carry them around with me until the day that I die. And then Effie, my child, my daughter, will carry them around with her. Like I do think. Like if your big players living to 103, this is going to be my big play. I think what we're living through now, this 20-year window where we've lived lives almost exclusively online, is coming to an end.
Yeah.
I don't think that what's going to carry us forward is what's carried us to this point. And you can see it already. Like we're seeing it in the research that we're doing. For the last 2 years, we've seen this huge turn away from, certainly with younger people, but also with people of all ages. They're turning back to physical things, whether it's meeting people in physical spaces, like got to have the most trite examples of Run Club or High Rocks. But also you're seeing now again, like the rise of physical photography and printed photography. Like people are buying books again, people are buying records again, and make of it what you will. Maybe it's Taylor Swift wanting to sell an album in Sainsbury's for 35 quid or whatever it is, but there's lots and lots of that type of physical media is happening again, because the archives. I'm very reticent to sound like I'm going to be I am running the risk of sounding like a massive Luddite now. What's going to happen over the course of the next 4 or 5 years is culture, actual literal culture, is going to become more important than ever, because it plays a fundamental role in how we all associate with each other and how we find a space to belong. And the internet is going to be a difficult place, because all of a sudden it's going to be filled with AI generated content that's based on what's been created before. And, that will get us to a certain point, but it's in no one's interest really to push culture forwards, because it's not a commercial venture. Unless you're a brand and you want to be, part of that area. And so like, if you're a ginormous technology company, your goal is to try and capture someone's attention, or capture as much of someone's attention as possible. And the best way to do that, the cheapest, most efficient way to do that, is make stuff that they might like.
Yeah. And connect with and feel something. And I agree. I think there's sorry, did you have something else you were going to say there?
No, it's all good. I was borderline ranting.
No, because I was going to join the rant, because I'm like you. I'm not a Luddite, but I do. I have a healthy cynicism about the true value of some of these things. And I have to say, I only go onto the social media platforms now and then. And when I do, I have to scroll through 8 or 10 things that are clearly artificial, and I just don't engage with them, because I know they're not real. So it's like, I'm looking for the Chugly girls of this world, who are just authentically charming, funny people, who are a little bit naughty, a bit rude, and say things that aren't politically correct, but not in a abusive way or exploitative way, but just a cheeky way. Because I'm feeling something. I'm feeling a connection with her. She's just making me feel something. And I've got 2 creative children. My daughter's extremely creative as well. She's a very talented illustrator. And every now and then she gets a little bit down about the AI world and how people can just churn out, animations and illustrations just like that. And I say to her, yes, and none of those move anybody.
100%.
The ones that move people are the ones that are hand drawn by or hand imagined. They may well use some gadgetry to bring it to life, but it's a human that's behind that's making you feel that thing. And I think there's going to be a real premium on anything that's that you can certify as being human orientated and human created. And I think, it's good news if you can stay as a live band, for example, right now. I think people will pay thousands now to see a really great live band. Not per ticket, but like if back in my day when I was in a band, if I got 40 quid to spend between the 4 of us, I was happy with that. But now I think I'd probably command a lot more because people are yearning for it. They want live music. They want to feel something. I don't know. They want to get sweaty in a club together and feel that kind of I was there moment. So I think that stuff's going to get even more premium as we start to have more and more of the basic things taken care of by technology.
Yeah, I agree. And someone said to me over Christmas, "Are you not worried about a lot of the AI services, the generative AI services, like stealing the research market? Because obviously we're in the business of research at the sort of surface level." I said, "Well, no, because if you want the GDP of 12 different countries over the course of the last 10 years, then that's fine. But if you want to understand why 6-7 has been a global phenomena,
Yeah, exactly.
GPT is not going to tell you that."
And nobody could have predicted that one with any kind of planning.
No.
Yeah. Oh, good.
And so for those things, it's I think that the things that the little details that make the difference, I think are the big things that will make the difference. And that probably brings me on to number 5, which is Resh. And I think I mentioned Resh earlier. Ironically, we both worked together at Snapchat, and she's still at Snapchat, where she's a senior director. Resh had a very, very similar background and upbringing to me, except she had the sort of triple bind of being brown and being a woman. And so there were lots of similarities, but lots of differences. And she was basically stole me. I got hired at Snapchat by a guy called Will, and then she stole me about 2 months after I joined to set up an internal agency within Snapchat. And she just gave me a massive chance. And on a personal level, I really got on with her for loads of different reasons. But on a professional level, she was hard work in every sense, because everything was about the work. Everything was in service of the work. And her diligence and focus, I've never worked with anyone that is as driven on detail as getting to not just a 10, like nearly a 10 out of 10, but making sure that every single thing that goes out of the door, whether it's an email or whether it's like a digital illustration or an AR experience or whatever it was, everything was like a borderline 11 out of 10.
Yeah.
And it's, she always used to sort of make reference to this quote, and I use it now all the time as well. Like in the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, Phil Jackson, this is my only sports reference I will ever have, but Phil Jackson's interviewed and he's talking about Jordan, and he said, the thing is, when you've got great players and you know they've got incredible talent, you coach them, and you coach them hard because you know that they're capable. Yeah. And it's something that it stuck with Rash, and it's now by virtue stuck with me, because she coached me and the rest of the team so hard, and it was infuriating a lot of the time. But I look back on that 3 years now, and I'm like, God, you instilled such a high quality, like high standard of work. Now, infuriatingly for all the people that I work with,
you're
doing the same. Yeah. But if you're able, why settle for something that's a 7 or an 8 out of 10? Yeah.
There's a huge compliment to their abilities, isn't it? And to yours. And a recurring theme, if you think about it. So Resh has that kind of guiding, mentoring influencer on you. And you certainly had that from, I think it was Marco as your mentor. And you got your work ethics all the way through as well with Maggie and her work hard type thing, isn't it? So that's definitely a thread through you. So it's great that you finish on Resh, and a great kind of career reference as well. I mean, Snapchat's nothing to sniff at, is it? I mean, as a platform, and for you to work in that platform experience and that environment, I bet that's stood you in fantastic stead for your own business now. So would you say, or did you bring a lot from it?
No, 100%. And I think as a planner and a strat, and your son will probably benefit from this as well. When you're built within the advertising industry, you kind of become a little blinkered that's the only industry that you can work in. And when I went platform side, I just realized that the stuff that I've learned over the last 15 years actually was really useful in lots of other ways as well. And Resh was a massive proponent of that. It was a steep learning curve, certainly, because there were a whole bunch of new people that didn't understand what they did or what their role was or how it works. And there was all sorts of things that come with being in-house in terms of having the right answer or having the right thing is like 20% of the job. Trying to get it through various different hurdles and making sure everyone's on board is the other 80%. But it's Resh and that experience gave me the confidence that I could run a business.
Yeah.
And that's, priceless. Like a world-class experience and education in 3 years. And like I still spend a lot of time talking to Resh now. We work really closely. They're like Snapchat are a client of ours, so we still spend a lot of time together. But even outside of that, we still hang out a lot. She's a very, very special person.
Amazing. It's a great list, actually, Jed. I mean, it's very diverse. I love the fact that you've brought in some people who are actually published, so listeners can actually delve into their work. And we've sort of, there have been some honourable mentions, and it feels to me like you've crafted and curated a very rich and diverse life. So hats off to you. And I don't know if you want to just spend a couple of minutes on reflecting on the sort of core elements of you that you can directly link to these people that you carry every day. So we talked a little bit about work ethic. We've talked about driving hard and getting things, out the door that's at a certain standard. But is there anything else you can think of that's now we've spoken and gone, wow, I get this from this person or that person?
I mean, just looking back through the list now is making me a bit bleary-eyed. Like I'm insanely lucky to have come into contact with these people and for them to have seen something in me, whether it is as little as Emma or Tim and it becoming a friendship, or whether it was as deep as my nan Maggie, or being coached by Mark or Resh. Like they've seen something in me that a lot of the time I've not seen. And I think in all of them, it's weird to think it now, actually, in all of them, I think they've seen a curiosity and a drive and an energy, and they've just helped shape it and give it direction and teach me about the importance of consistency. Yeah. And it's something that just keep showing up is such an underrated ability of just keep at it. Like you don't fail until you stop trying. I think is a big one. So I think each of them in their own way have taught me about, it's not enough just to have the curiosity. It's great that you've got it and it's great that you've got energy, but you've got to focus it. And if you do focus it and you focus it in a consistent way, then you can do things that you never dreamed of being able to do when you were growing up, which is very true where I'm at. Like it really is a charmed life. And it's because of these people. Yeah,
no, that's loud and clear, and a wonderful tribute to them that you can recognise that in your own fortune. So that's really brilliant. So what's next for you then, Jed? What's the near term for you? What are you going to be doing?
I mean, we've got a big year ahead at Culture Lab. We're now entering into our second full year. We're working with some incredible brands, so it's going to be a busy year. We're about to go from 10 people to probably, hopefully, 25, 30 by the end of the year. We'll be opening up a US office, which is huge. And that's on the work front. On Common People, we're about to publicly launch a fund that we set up last year, which is effectively like an emergency bursary for people that need access to cash for things like training or equipment or got a suit hire for an awards do. I will be looking for a partner for that, which I think is going to be fun. This will be the 4th year of Love Will Save the Day. So it's now looks after itself financially. So it's supported by the community. So it's going to be trying to move from 3 days a week broadcasting to 4 or 5, which is huge for us. And I think that'll be enough.
I think that sounds enough. I've written all 3 down, so I'll ring you in a year, see how you get on. But no, I mean, in terms of ambition and objectives, that's a year's full there. So
I'm going to try and squeeze in running from Edale to Scotland in between there as well in June, which is
that far.
It's the Pennine Way. It's 268 miles.
Oh,
so,
Jed, really?
I don't watch a lot of telly, and this is what happens when you don't watch telly.
Well, I say that when people say, "How do you fit in all these podcasts and things?" Same thing.
Yeah,
I don't watch much. I tell you what, though, I've got some guilty pleasures though. I do really love Traitors. I don't know what it is about watching people tear each other to bits It's like gladiatorial, isn't it? Yeah. So, well, as a listener, I wish you all the best with it, Jed. I think it's an amazing, like I said at the beginning, this kind of portfolio life that you lead. You've obviously found the things that really matter to you, and you're doing more than just thinking about it. You're doing something about it, which I think is just marvelous. And bringing all your intrinsic passions for music, combining it with your roots, and also your innate talents and the experience that you've built over your, what did you say, 18 years? Quite some years. Oh. I have to say 30 years these days, Jed. So just, think about that.
Okay, thank you. Good.
You feel better now. So listen, I think it's absolutely brilliant. So I want to ask you my very last question, which is, who should I speak to next and why? You mentioned a couple earlier.
Yeah, there's 3 people that I think it'd be interesting to talk to. So there's Lisa Thompson, who is one of the co-founders of Common People. There's a woman called Sarah Sutton, who I've known, who was one of the original co-founders of Common People, who I think would be really interesting to talk to, and has just left a very, very senior role at Oatly. And there's a guy called James Hillhouse, who is the chair of Common People. So there's a very Common People theme to this. But each of them, I think, would be fascinating to talk to. James, in particular, I think, has got a fascinating story, as well as Lisa, well as all of them, really.
Well, listen, even if you weren't introducing me to them, I want to be introduced to them, because I really like the sound of this, what you're doing. And I might be able to be useful. Who knows, in the spirit of being useful. But no, I'd love to meet them. If you can make that happen, I'd be really, really thrilled. So listen, thank you for today. I knew it was going to be diverse and rich in its content. I like to think that I kept up in some aspects where you got a little bit too cool for school there, Jed, just saying, with some of your references. But I'd like to think I held my own. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. It's been brilliant.
Thank you. Proper privilege to be invited and asked.
Well, that was Jed Hallam. Did you learn something? I did. I learned a lot. I am always in awe of people who have that much depth of knowledge in anything, but particularly in music. So I hope you've really enjoyed that. And what he doesn't know about the culture of all of us, I don't think is worth knowing. So do check him out online and see what he's up to. I think the future is very bright in terms of his participation. So, okay, let's talk about next week. Next week, I have Penny DeVolk. So apart from having the world's best name, what you'll come to hear is a woman of great substance, great wisdom, has the most amazing voice. She's a Kiwi, which you'll hear. And, which brings its own sort of, I suppose, I don't know, extra thing to the conversation. And also her references are very different to people who've grown up in the UK. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this one with you. She's a wonderful guest, and you will learn something there too. So that's next week. So have a good week ahead, and I'll see you then. Take care for now. Bye-bye.